I still remember the exact second the front door clicked shut behind me. My belly heavy at 7 months pregnant, my hands trembling, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape before I did. And while I dragged my suitcase across our Manhattan apartment hallway, one thought kept looping in my mind like a siren. If I don't leave tonight, I may never get another chance. 30 minutes earlier, I had been sitting alone in our bedroom, the city lights from Fifth Avenue reflecting off my diamond earrings, his first gift to me, lying cold in my palm. Meanwhile, my husband Daniel was out having a business dinner. Business dinner, my ass. I had already seen the hotel reservation confirmation for the Royal Midtown Romance Suite for 2 flash across his shared iCloud calendar. My marriage wasn't breaking, it had already broken. I was just finally acknowledging the sound. I took a deep breath, opened my suitcase, and began packing. Folded maternity clothes on the left, baby onesies on the right. My MacBook Air, my entire freelance income tucked safely inside a padded sleeve. Then came the first comedy moment of the night. I had dropped a tiny pair of baby socks, yellow with little giraffes, behind the bed. Normally I could crouch down and grab them, but now, with a belly the size of a basketball? I tried. I genuinely tried. I bent down, my belly bumped the mattress, and I made a noise that can only be described as a pregnant woman trying to fold like a cardboard box. I froze halfway, looked at myself in the mirror, and whispered, "Girl, this is not your proudest moment." In the end, I had to use a wooden spoon from the nightstand to fish the sock out. When it finally popped free, I celebrated like I'd just won an Olympic medal, but even through the absurdity, the heartbreak stayed. I opened Daniel's walk-in closet next. His suits, navy, charcoal, tailored in Beverly Hills, hung in perfect lines. His Rolex sat on the dresser. His cologne filled the air with that cold, metallic scent I used to love. And yet he wasn't home. He was with her. Again, I moved slowly, deliberately, making sure every single thing I packed belonged to me and the baby, not him. My lawyer friend Maya had warned me, take nothing he can use against you, not even a bath towel, Claire. So yes, if you're wondering, my towels stayed behind. Finally, I returned to the bed. The place we once whispered dreams about our future. The place he betrayed again and again. I placed the diamond earrings right at the center of the sheets, aligning them perfectly like I was submitting evidence to a judge. Then I set down the goodbye note. No dramatic paragraphs, no tears and ink stains, just one short message. You chose tonight, so I choose freedom. My breath shook when I read it back. My hands felt like they were no longer mine. The apartment suddenly felt too quiet. Even the hum of the city outside felt distant, like Manhattan itself was holding its breath for me. I pulled on my coat, grabbed my suitcase, and opened the front door. But of course, because the universe loves humor, the suitcase wheel got stuck on the doormat. I tugged. It didn't move. I tugged harder. The doormat flipped over, I nearly lost balance, and I muttered under my breath, "Fantastic. Even the rug wants me to stay in this toxic marriage." I finally freed it with one dramatic yank, nearly knocking over Daniel's prized umbrella stand. Then I stepped into the hall. I placed one hand over my belly and whispered, "We're leaving, baby. We're really doing it." And with that, I closed the door behind us. Quietly, carefully, permanently. If you had seen us 3 years ago, you never would have believed we'd end up here. Me dragging a suitcase out of our apartment, 7 months pregnant and done. Back then, we looked like every cheesy Manhattan love story you've ever scrolled past on Instagram. I first met Daniel at a charity gala downtown. I wasn't supposed to be there. My friend Maya had a last-minute extra ticket because her date got food poisoning from bad sushi. She called me while I was editing content on my MacBook Air and said, "Put on something nice. We're going to go stare at rich people and pretend we belong." How could I say no to that? The ballroom sparkled, literally. Chandeliers, a string quartet, waiters sliding between people with trays of champagne. I spent the first 20 minutes trying to make sure I didn't trip in my heels or spill anything on my thrift store dress. So obviously, when a very tall, very composed man turned around, I immediately bumped straight into him and nearly baptized his tuxedo with sparkling water. "I am so sorry," I blurted, clutching my glass like a crime scene weapon. "I swear I normally only assault people verbally." He laughed, took the glass from my hand before I dropped it, and said, "I'll take my chances." That was Daniel. confident, charming, the kind of man who made eye contact like you were the only person in the room. He asked me about my work, and instead of glazing over when I said I did digital content and small brand campaigns, he asked real questions. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like the broke creative friend tagging along behind the corporate crowd. Later that night, we ended up outside on the balcony. Manhattan was spread out under us like a lit-up map. Tiny yellow cabs, the dark line of the river, the whole skyline humming. Daniel shrugged off his jacket and put it over my shoulders when I shivered. "This city is insane," I said. "It chews you up, then sends you a Starbucks promo code and asks you to keep going." He laughed so hard at that, people turned to look. "Marry me," he joked. The crazy part is, a year later, he almost said it in the exact same place. He took me to dinner at a restaurant near the Plaza Hotel. The kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices, which means, if you have to ask, you shouldn't be there. I kept making jokes under my breath about taking photos of the tableware and selling them online if the bill was too high. After dessert, the waiter brought out a small white box with a bow. My heart actually skipped. Inside was the pair of diamond earrings, simple, elegant, catching every bit of candlelight. "Claire," Daniel said, suddenly nervous in a way I'd never seen. "When you look in the mirror, I want you to remember that you're the most important investment I've ever made." I should have known the word investment was a red flag, but I was too busy crying and nodding. I didn't even notice the tiny flicker of satisfaction that crossed his face when I said yes to him, yes to us, yes to this shiny version of happily ever after. Later that night, when we walked down Fifth Avenue hand in hand, I kept touching the earrings, half afraid they'd vanish. Daniel kept his arm tight around my shoulders, steering me gently away from puddles, from crowds, from everything. Back then, I thought it was protective. I didn't realize until much later that he was already getting used to the feeling of directing where I walked. If love really was blind, then pregnancy made me practically legally blind, because the signs were right in front of me months before I ever packed my suitcase. At around 5 months pregnant, when my ankles first started swelling and my emotions decided to behave like fireworks, Daniel began coming home late. Not suspicious at first, he worked in finance. Wall Street hours were practically medieval torture. But then it became every night. "Client dinner," he'd say, barely looking up from his iPhone. "Conference call. Emergency meeting. Bond market volatility." I still don't know what that last one means, but he said it with such confidence. I nodded like an idiot. One night, while editing a Canaan on my MacBook Air, I noticed something odd. Daniel's public work calendar, something he always bragged was meticulously organized, was completely empty on a day he claimed he was traveling for a client pitch. I stared at the blank screen like it had personally insulted me. "Interesting," I muttered. "Baby kicked." "I know, sweetheart. Mommy thinks it's weird too." The next day I decided to investigate further, subtly. I say subtly, but the truth is, there is nothing subtle about a 5-month pregnant woman tiptoeing around a penthouse like an undercover elephant. My first mission? The sniff test. People online said you could smell infidelity. I regretted listening to them almost instantly. Daniel tossed his blazer on the bed, and while he showered, I lifted it like it was contaminated evidence from a crime scene. I took a cautious sniff, then a deeper sniff, then a third, which was a mistake, because pregnancy nausea kicked in like a SWAT team. I rushed into the bathroom and threw up so violently that Daniel yanked the shower curtain open in horror, dripping wet and holding a bottle of overpriced shampoo. "Claire, what's wrong?" I wiped my mouth and glared. "Your cologne attacked me." He raised an eyebrow. "My what?" "Your cologne. It's too ambitious." He blinked at me. "Ambitious?" I waved him off dramatically. "Just finish your shower." It wasn't cologne, I knew that. There was something floral, something sweet, something not mine. But I wasn't ready to admit it. The second sign? The text. We were having dinner, chicken Alfredo that I'd attempted but ended up oversalting so badly I apologized to our unborn child for the sodium levels, when his phone buzzed face up on the table. The screen lit up with a heart emoji and the name H. He lunged so fast he nearly knocked his wine over. "HR," he blurted. "Human resources thing. Boring." I tilted my head. "HR sends you heart emojis?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then forced a laugh that sounded like a dying vacuum cleaner. That night, lying in bed, I touched my belly and whispered, "If mommy is just overthinking because of hormones, please kick once. If mommy is right, kick twice." The baby kicked 3 times in a row like she was dropping a diss track. Then came the third sign, the hardest to ignore and the easiest to deny. Daniel stopped touching me. Not in a distant, too busy way, in a calculated way, a way that made my skin feel like a crime scene he didn't want fingerprints on. He'd kiss my forehead, pat my back, and roll over. Each night left me lonelier than the last. One evening, when he came home late again, I tried making a joke to lighten the mood. "If you're cheating on me, at least bring back dessert." He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. He just said, "Claire, can we not do this?" And that was the moment, just a flicker, when I felt something deep inside me crack, like a tiny glass thread snapping. But instead of facing the truth, I did what every terrified wife does. I convinced myself everything was fine. I was wrong, very wrong. Pregnancy has a way of turning small moments into major emotional earthquakes. But nothing, not cravings, not mood swings, not swollen ankles, prepared me for the earthquake that arrived in the form of a bank statement. It started on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at the dining table, editing product shots for a skincare brand on my MacBook Air, when Maya knocked on my door. She held 2 things, a giant salad bowl and a Starbucks decaf latte. "Pregnant queen?" she said, bowing dramatically. "I bring offerings." I laughed and let her in. She was the one person who hadn't treated me like fragile glass since I hit the 3rd trimester's doorstep. We talked about nonsense, celebrity gossip, baby names, whether my child would inherit my sarcasm or Daniel's jawline. God help us if it's his jawline and his attitude. For a moment, I felt normal again. Then Maya spotted a thick envelope on the counter. "What's that?" she asked. I shrugged. "Probably more baby ads. I once Googled cribs and now the entire internet thinks I'm raising triplets." But Maya wasn't convinced. She opened it, lawyer instincts tingling, before I even realized it was addressed to Daniel. Inside were itemized credit card statements. At first I smiled, thinking it was harmless. Daniel liked expensive things. He always justified his spending with finance jargon I didn't understand, but pretended to. Then Maya's eyes widened. "Claire, look." I leaned in. There it was, the Royal Midtown Hotel Romance Suite package, dinner for 2, champagne upgrade. My heart stopped. Not slowed, stopped. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was for a coworker? A negotiation thing? Team bonding? Maya stared at me like I'd suggested the earth was flat. "For a romance package? With champagne?" I swallowed. "Maybe the team is close?" She pinched the bridge of her nose. "Sweetheart, if they're that close, they don't need HR, they need a family counselor." I should have cried right then, but instead, I laughed. Snorted. My brain short-circuited and decided denial was funnier than pain. Maya slid through the rest of the statement, and things only got worse. More dinners, more hotel charges, more transactions on nights Daniel claimed was in late meetings. Finally, she handed me a page filled with Uber receipts, all ending at the same hotel. My throat tightened. My stomach twisted, not nausea this time, but recognition. Because these weren't vague clues. They were fluorescent billboards spelling out, "He's cheating." Maya placed a gentle hand on mine. "Claire, we have to talk about what you want to do." I didn't answer. My eyes were locked on a particularly bold line. 2-person spa package, charged at 10:42 p.m. A spa. While I sat home Googling how many pillows pregnant women can safely use, the silence grew heavy. Then Maya tried to lighten it. "Look, at least he's consistent. If he's gonna act like trash, he's going for premium trash." I choked out a laugh through tears. "Great. Love that for us." She squeezed my hand. "Claire, this isn't your fault." But I didn't believe her, not yet. Because deep down I still wanted there to be another explanation, any explanation, that wasn't the obvious one. As if on cue, baby kicked. Hard. A little too hard, actually, like they were saying, "Mom, open your eyes." Then came the moment that unraveled the last piece of denial I had left. Maya lifted the final page, a receipt from a jewelry store. "A necklace?" I whispered, touching the diamond earrings still hanging from my ears. "He bought jewelry?" Maya read the note attached to the purchase. "To H for last night, D." My heart didn't break. It collapsed. I removed my earrings slowly, gently, the way you handle fragile things when you know you'll never wear them again. I whispered, voice shaking, "I think he hasn't loved me for a long time." But Maya leaned closer, her voice firm. No, Claire, he hasn't valued you. Loving you, he never understood what that even meant. Baby kicked again, soft this time. And that was when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was the beginning of something else, something I wasn't ready for then, but would eventually survive. If betrayal was a wound, then what I discovered next was salt poured directly into it, industrial-grade, Wall Street-sized salt. About a week after Maya and I uncovered the hotel charges, the jewelry receipt, and the Uber rides, I decided to observe Daniel more closely. Not confront, observe. Maya told me, don't show your cards until you have all his cards. Lawyer talk. Strategic talk. Survival talk. One night, Daniel came home later than usual, like midnight late. I was half asleep on the couch with my pregnancy pillow wrapped around me like a giant, suffocating cinnamon roll. When I heard the elevator ding, I jolted upright so fast I nearly catapulted myself off the sofa. Daniel entered, wearing his tailored charcoal suit, wrinkled in a way that wasn't business long day, wrinkled, but someone grabbed it by the lapels, wrinkled. He didn't notice I was awake. He tossed his Rolex onto the table, a habit he only had when he was anxious, and immediately dialed someone on speakerphone. I froze, then slowly, very slowly, slid down behind the kitchen island like a pregnant ninja turtle. Stealthy wasn't the right word, but determined? Absolutely. Yeah, I handled it, he said into the phone. His voice was low, annoyed. But she's too emotional lately, you know how pregnant women get. My jaw actually dropped. I whispered to my belly, did he just... Baby responded with a kick, which I interpreted as, yes, he did. Drag him, Mom. I need her calm, Daniel continued. If she's calm, she'll sign whatever I put in front of her. My heart slammed against my ribs. What documents? He kept talking. I'm meeting with the lawyer tomorrow to finalize the supplemental agreement. After that, I'll move everything to the holding company without her interference. My breath caught. The holding company. Maya had warned me about that. If he shifted assets away before the baby arrived, I could end up with nothing, not even child support. Then came the part that cemented everything. No, Haley, listen, he snapped. I told you. I'll take care of her financially just enough so she doesn't suspect anything. The prenup already favors me, but this new agreement, once she signs it, she'll have zero claim. Zero. My fingers tightened around the kitchen counter. Zero. Pregnant, married, 7 years together. Zero. I covered my mouth with my hands, afraid the sound of my breathing would give me away. Daniel sighed dramatically, pacing around the living room. No, she won't leave. She's too dependent. And she's pregnant. She's not going anywhere. Trust me. Baby kicked again, hard, like they were personally offended. For a moment, I imagined myself standing up and confronting him right then and there. Throwing a vase. Reading him his rights like an angry cop. But I stayed hidden. Because Maya was right. I needed proof. I needed a strategy. I needed timing. Daniel finally ended the call and headed toward the bedroom. When the door shut, I let myself breathe. Then I shifted to stand. And my foot slipped on something. A banana peel. A literal, actual banana peel. I whispered angrily at the universe, this is not the time for slapstick comedy. I caught myself on the island before I fell, but the absurdity of almost dying via produce in the middle of a marital espionage moment nearly made me laugh. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, one hand on my belly, the other holding my laptop. I backed up every file, every message, every receipt. Then I emailed Maya. Subject, it's worse than we thought. Message, I heard everything. We need to start the plan. Her reply arrived in less than 2 minutes. Then we do this my way. And that was the night I learned. He wasn't just cheating, he was preparing to legally erase me. But he underestimated one thing. A pregnant woman who has finally stopped ignoring the truth. I didn't know people could feel rage and nausea at the same time, but apparently pregnancy makes multitasking easier. The night I overheard Daniel plotting to trick me into signing away everything, something inside me shifted, clicked, hardened. By the next morning, I was sitting in Maya's office on Park Avenue, wrapped in my oversized sweater like a burrito of betrayal. She placed a cup of warm water in front of me, no caffeine, and said, "Tell me everything. Don't skip the disgusting parts." So I did. Every word, every sentence Daniel had whispered to Haley, every plan he'd made to strip me of financial rights, every assumption he'd made about me being too emotional to leave. Maya didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me the way surgeons stare at x-rays. Then she leaned back, exhaled, and said, "Okay, we're going to burn him alive." I blinked. "Metaphorically, right?" She shrugged. "Debatable." I laughed despite myself, a loud, exhausted, unattractive snort. Maya opened her laptop. "We're building a file. You gather everything from your side, emails, receipts, the suspicious hotel confirmations. I'll handle the legal landmines." "Are we allowed to do this?" I asked weakly. "Claire," she said firmly, "he's plotting to rob his pregnant wife. You are allowed to breathe and protect yourself. Everything else is details." We spent 2 hours drafting a plan so detailed it would have made a Wall Street analyst cry. Photos, timestamps, screenshots, a timeline, a backup drive, and then, "We need evidence he's actively transferring assets," Maya said. I nodded, rubbing my belly. "He mentioned something about a holding company." Maya grinned. "Perfect. Men like Daniel always think they're smarter than paperwork." Then came the comedic highlight of the day. Maya pushed the office chair toward me, forgetting that I no longer fit into chairs like I used to. The armrests squeezed my belly, and I looked like a marshmallow trying to get into a cocktail dress. "Maya," I said deadpan, "I'm stuck." She froze, then burst into laughter so loud her assistant peeked through the frosted door. "Ma'am, do you need help?" the assistant asked. "Yes," I said, "but mostly emotional help." Eventually, Maya rescued me from the hostile chair, and we returned to planning. "Next step," Maya said. "We gather proof he's seeing her." I frowned. "I mean, we already know." "Yes, but court doesn't know, and court likes photos." I groaned. "Maya, I'm 7 months pregnant. I can't exactly lurk in alleyways." "You don't have to," she said, a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. "We're hiring a discreet service. They're professionals. One time they caught a guy cheating because he checked into a hotel with his mistress while wearing a neon pink flamingo shirt." I stared. "A flamingo shirt?" "Oh yes, apparently midlife crises are bold." We made arrangements, and then, as if the universe wanted comedic timing, Daniel texted, "At a client dinner, don't wait up, love you." I read it out loud. Maya took my phone, rolled her eyes, and said, "Tell him you're craving something impossible, like a mango at midnight in December." I raised an eyebrow. "Why? So he suffers." I laughed again. "I'm not doing that." But as soon as Daniel sent another "miss you," Maya grabbed my phone and typed, "Miss you too. Bring home tiramisu? I'm emotional." Daniel replied instantly. "On it. Anything for you." Maya smirked. "Wow, he can fake affection faster than Amazon Prime shipping." Then her tone shifted, serious, grounded. "Claire, listen to me. You are not weak, you are not trapped, and he doesn't get to decide your future. We do." Baby kicked, like they were agreeing. I placed my hand over my belly and whispered, "We're getting out, I promise." And that night, armed with evidence, allies, and a tiny human determined to roundhouse kick my ribs, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. It wasn't freedom yet, but it was the first step toward it. The night Daniel chose her over us didn't feel like a collapse. It felt like confirmation. He stood in our living room, tie loosened, hairstyled too perfectly to be just a workday, and said the same scripted line he'd been using for months. "Client dinner. Late night. Don't wait up." But this time, he added a kiss on my forehead that felt like someone stamping "return to sender" on me. I nodded gently. "Sure. Have a nice dinner." He didn't notice my suitcase in the corner of the guest room. He didn't notice the organized files on my MacBook Air, or the empty drawers, or the missing set of baby clothes from the dresser. Because men like Daniel don't look at what they assume will never leave. He left the apartment at 7:42 p.m. At 8:10 p.m., I received an email notification on the shared account he forgot to unlink. "Your reservation at the Royal Midtown is confirmed." Romance suite. 2 guests. I stared at the screen. "No shame," I whispered to my belly. 0. Absolutely none. Baby kicked as if saying, "Drag him, Mom." I changed into a loose dress, tied up my hair, slipped on sneakers because my ankles had inflated to the size of artisan sourdough loaves, and stood in the middle of the apartment. It was shockingly quiet, like Manhattan itself had stepped outside to give me space. I took a slow walk down the hallway, touching each wall, each frame, each memory. This place had once been warm. Now it felt like a crime scene with better lighting. At 9 p.m. sharp, Maya called. "You ready?" she asked. "As ready as a pregnant woman about to commit life reconstruction," I said. "Good." The movers are downstairs, and the Uber driver already knows you're fragile, emotionally and physically. I snorted. Perfect. I moved through the apartment one last time. I opened Daniel's closet and inhaled, not because I missed him, but because I needed to remember exactly what kind of man I was walking away from. As I leaned down to pick up a box, my belly bumped a shelf and toppled one of his stupidly expensive cologne bottles. I tried to catch it, failed, and it shattered dramatically across the hardwood floor. The entire room instantly smelled like egomaniac number 5. Fine, I muttered. Let it smell like what it really is. I grabbed my suitcase and headed toward the bedroom. The bed, our bed, was perfectly made. I placed the diamond earrings in the center of the blanket. Then I took out the white envelope, breathed once, and set it next to them. I didn't write anything poetic. I didn't write anything angry. I didn't even write his name. Just, when you come home tonight, don't look for me. You already chose where you wanted to be. I stepped back and stared at it all. It felt final. It felt heavy. It felt right. As I turned to leave, I tripped over the stupid decorative pillow Daniel insisted on buying because interior designers use them on the Ritz-Carlton beds. I stumbled, caught myself on the dresser, and hissed, "If I survive this marriage, it won't be because of your taste in pillows." Downstairs, Maya was waiting with 2 movers, one tall and silent, the other talkative. The talkative one looked at my belly and said, "Due soon?" I deadpanned. I was due to leave this man 6 months ago. He wheezed laughing and nearly dropped a lamp. We rode to Brooklyn Heights, where Maya had prepared a temporary place for me, a small apartment, clean, quiet, a safe stop before the real rebuilding. When the movers finished, Maya hugged me, careful of my belly, and whispered, "You're out, Claire. Really out." I sat on the new couch. Baby kicked softly. The city hummed outside like a lullaby. I whispered back, "We made it, sweetheart. He doesn't get to choose for us anymore." I didn't know what was coming next. Court, consequences, chaos. But I knew one thing. Tonight was the last night he would ever choose her. Because I finally chose myself. Daniel stumbled into our penthouse at 6:13 a.m., smelling like champagne, hotel perfume, and guilt poorly disguised as confidence. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his shirt partially untucked, and his hair styled in that overly perfect way that always meant someone else had run their fingers through it. He tossed his keys onto the marble counter, yawning. "Claire?" he called. Silence. He tried again, louder this time. "Claire, you up?" Still nothing. He wandered down the hallway, rubbing his eyes, pulling out his iPhone to check messages. None from me. His ego probably thought that meant I was peacefully sleeping, waiting for my Prince Charming to return from a client dinner. He pushed open the bedroom door, expecting warm lights and folded laundry and the faint scent of my lavender lotion. What he got instead was a perfectly made bed, and in the center of it, the diamond earrings. Daniel froze. His expression shifted quickly. Confusion, annoyance, realization, fear. What the hell? Then he saw the white envelope beside the earrings. He snatched it, ripped it open, and read the simple message inside. "When you come home tonight, don't look for me. You already chose where you wanted to be." He read it once, twice, 3 times. Then he tore through the apartment like a man possessed. "Claire." He checked the bathroom. Empty. The guest room. Empty. The nursery that we never finished because he didn't have time yet. Empty, except for a single giraffe sock that had escaped my packing and lay in the corner like a tiny witness. His breath turned sharp. Not heartbreak, panic. Because men like Daniel don't panic when they lose love. They panic when they lose control. He grabbed his phone and dialed my number. It went straight to voicemail. Next he tried Maya. "Maya? Where is she? Put her on the phone." Maya, already awake because she expected this storm, answered calmly. "Daniel, yelling won't make you sound innocent. You can't just help her disappear. You managed to do a pretty good job disappearing from your marriage, all on your own." Maya replied. Daniel cursed and hung up. He stormed into the kitchen, pacing. His Rolex clacked loudly each time he slammed his hand against the counter. He tried searching through drawers like I'd hidden behind the silverware. Then came the comedic moment the universe gifted him. He stepped on something soft, slid, flailed, and landed flat on his back. He sat up slowly and picked up the offending object, one of his own luxury spa flyers from the Royal Midtown, the same spa where he'd taken Haley. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered. "Fitting, really." slipping on his own mistake. When he finally got up, he noticed something else missing, quiet but unmistakable: his laptop bag. Because I took nothing that belonged to him, but I absolutely took everything that belonged to me. His breathing grew shallow. He rushed into his home office, opened drawers, checked his financial folders. Several accounts were frozen, transfer requests flagged. That's when he understood. This wasn't abandonment. This was a counterattack. He dialed his financial advisor. "What happened to my accounts?" he shouted. On the other end, the advisor said carefully, "There's been some activity flagged. We were notified by legal counsel representing." Daniel slammed the phone down before the sentence even finished. Then his phone buzzed again, a number he didn't recognize. He answered with a sharp, "What?" A calm voice replied, "Mr. Morgan, this is regarding the investigation into your recent financial movements. We need you to come in." Daniel's face drained of color. Because he wasn't just losing me. He was losing everything he thought he'd hidden, and this was only the beginning. The first time I saw Daniel after leaving him wasn't at home, or on the street, or even at a hospital the way some dramatic stories go. It was in a glass-walled conference room on Park Avenue. Yes, Park Avenue. Because Maya wanted the setting to reflect exactly how serious this was, and also because she enjoys psychological warfare in expensive zip codes. I walked in slowly, my 7.5-month belly leading the way. Maya carried my files like a general entering battle. The assistant offered me a chair, but I shook my head. "I'm pregnant, not porcelain," I said. "Besides, once I sit, I may need a forklift to get up." The assistant snorted. Maya elbowed him. Daniel was already seated at the table, looking like a deflated version of the man he pretended to be. His hair was uncharacteristically messy, he hadn't shaved, and his shirt wasn't ironed, clear signs he'd caught the express train to Panic Town. When he saw me, he stood. "Claire?" His voice cracked, not from love, from fear. I sat slowly, adjusting my maternity dress, and said calmly, "Please, Daniel, sit. I know your legs are tired from all that running, between hotels, lawyers, accountants. Must have been exhausting." Maya nearly choked, holding back laughter. Across the table sat Daniel's attorney, a polished man who clearly regretted taking this case the second he saw our stack of evidence. He cleared his throat and said, "Let's begin." Maya slid a thick binder onto the table. It landed with a weighty thump. Daniel flinched. Inside were all the documents: hotel receipts, credit card statements, bank transfers, messages, photos, his recorded conversation planning to trick me into signing away everything. Daniel's attorney flipped through it, his face draining into beige disappointment. "Daniel," the attorney whispered, "you didn't tell me you were this sloppy." Daniel hissed, "I wasn't sloppy." Then he saw the printed photo of him hugging Haley outside the Royal Midtown with her heels in one hand and his tie in hers. He sighed. "Okay, maybe a little sloppy." Maya clasped her hands like a kindergarten teacher about to scold a child. "Here are our terms," she said. "Claire retains primary custody. Daniel receives supervised visitation until further evaluation. Claire keeps the Manhattan residence until the baby turns 18. Asset division will be recalculated based on the attempted concealment we uncovered." Daniel cut in. "This is insane. She's trying to ruin me." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Daniel, you ruined yourself. Claire just filed the paperwork." I took a breath and spoke for the first time since sitting down. "You weren't just cheating, Daniel. You were preparing to erase me. You wanted me dependent, powerless, scared." He swallowed. Hard. "I loved you," he muttered. "No," I said softly. "You possessed me." A long silence filled the room. Then the attorney pulled out a fresh set of documents: subpoenas, inquiry letters, financial freezes. "Mr. Morgan," he said carefully, "you are facing an active investigation. The best thing you can do is accept this agreement. If you fight, you lose more." Daniel looked like he wanted to flip the table, but then his phone buzzed. His new reality in one notification. "Bank alert, transfer denied, account under review." The man actually whimpered. Then came the comedic moment I'll never forget. As Daniel tried to sign the agreement, his pen ran out of ink. He shook it aggressively. Nothing. Tried scribbling circles, still nothing. Maya reached over, handed him a pen and said sweetly, "Here, use this one. It writes clearly, unlike your conscience." His attorney snorted so loudly he had to pretend it was a cough. Daniel finally signed. Every signature was a surrender. Every page was justice. When it was over, Maya guided me toward the elevator. My back ached, my feet were swollen, but my chest felt lighter than it had in months. I pressed a hand to my belly. "It's over, sweetheart," I whispered. "He can't hurt us anymore." But Maya shook her head. "Oh no," she said. "It's not over." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She opened the elevator door. "His consequences are just getting started." 3 years later, I woke up to the sound of tiny feet thumping across the hardwood floor. My favorite alarm clock in the world. "Mommy, up, up." My daughter, Lily, jumped onto the bed and flopped onto my chest like she was still a toddler instead of a spirited 3-year-old who'd recently discovered gravity was optional. Her curls were wild, her pajamas mismatched, and she was holding her toy giraffe. The same pattern as the lost sock Daniel never noticed. I wrapped my arms around her, kissed the top of her head, and whispered, "Good morning, sunshine." The apartment was small compared to the Manhattan penthouse, but it was ours. Cozy, warm, quiet. A little messy, but joyful in a way that money never gave me. Sunlight poured through the window, landing on my Kindle left open on last night's chapter of Atomic Habits. A half-finished Starbucks cup sat on the table because motherhood. Lily lifted her head. "Can we go park today?" "Yes," I said. After Mommy answers 2 client emails, her eyes widened dramatically. 2? That's a lot, I laughed. Drama queen. My freelance business had grown in ways I never expected. I started small brand campaigns, then expanded to consulting. Working from home had given me time, freedom, and sanity. No one monitored my hours, no one controlled my accounts, no one made decisions for me. My life was mine again. At 10 a.m., we walked to the local park. Lily ran ahead, chasing bubbles from another mom's bubble wand. I sat on a bench, rubbing my hands together against the morning chill. A familiar voice spoke beside me. "Coffee refill?" I turned and smiled. Jack, my neighbor for the past year, held a fresh Starbucks cup in my favorite order. He was a single dad with kind eyes, quiet confidence, and the steady energy of someone who'd also lived through heartbreak and came out gentler, not harder. "I owe you one," I said, taking the cup. "You owe me about 9 at this point," he teased. "But who's counting?" We watched Lily and his son, Noah, slide down the slide in chaotic tandem, both screaming happily. Jack nudged my shoulder gently. "She's thriving, Claire. You did that." I exhaled, my chest warming. "We did it together. We grew up together." "Still?" His voice softened. "You rebuilt everything." The word rebuilt sank deeply because it was true. I'd rebuilt my finances, my confidence, my peace, my home, my motherhood. And justice? It eventually reached Daniel the way truth always does. He received supervised visitation only once a month. His financial crimes resulted in a suspended sentence, mandatory counseling, and loss of several licenses. His glamorous image evaporated faster than the champagne he used to toast with his mistress. He sent emails sometimes, overly polite, overly apologetic. I forwarded them to my lawyer. I never responded. As the breeze picked up, Lily ran back, plopping into my lap. "Mommy, look!" She held up a plastic pair of toy earrings, pink, sparkly, crooked. "I'm like you!" I froze for a moment. She didn't know the real diamond earrings were locked away in a box for years, the symbol of a past I'd finally buried. I smiled and gently fixed her plastic ones. "You're better than me," I whispered. "You're free." She giggled, kissed my cheek, and sprinted away to play again. Jack glanced at me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than okay." And it was true. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't surviving. I was living. Not for Daniel. Not for fear. Not even for closure. For Lily. For myself. For the quiet, steady joy of choosing peace every single day. As the kids laughed on the playground, I sipped my coffee, leaned back on the bench, and let the sunlight warm my face. I had left with almost nothing, but I built a life where my daughter would grow up seeing what love truly looks like. Safe, joyful, free. And that, after everything, was the real victory. Some nights, after Lily falls asleep and the apartment settles into that soft, peaceful silence, I sit by the window with a warm cup of Starbucks chamomile tea and my Kindle glowing faintly on the nightstand. I look outside at the gentle stretch of streetlights, the quiet trees swaying, the small world I've built with my own hands. And I realize something I never would have believed back then. Freedom doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it tiptoes in as peace. I used to think healing required grand gestures, new cities, new identities, new people to love. But in the end, it was the small things that saved me. the sound of Lily giggling in her sleep. The first morning I woke up without dread. The day I realized I didn't check my phone expecting anger or apologies. The moment I understood I wasn't afraid anymore. Healing wasn't a door I burst through. It was a path I learned to walk, slowly, barefoot, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing at how messy it all was. There are still days I feel the old ache, but it no longer breaks me. Now it teaches me. One night, Lily asked why we left the old house. I told her, because Mommy wanted you to grow up somewhere full of love. She nodded, proud in the way only toddlers can be, and said, "We did it." And somehow, hearing it from her tiny voice made everything real. We did it. We survived. We rebuilt. We grew into a life that finally feels like ours. If there is one thing I know now, it's this: sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and trust that peace will meet you where you land.